crypto. What's your point of view on cryptocurrencies and investing in crypto?
So I'll tell you where I invest my money so you can understand. I put my money in 5 places. I put my money into my own business. I invest my money into real estate. I invest my money into stocks. I invest my money into speculative assets, which includes cryptocurrency. And then I own some physical gold. So starting with my own business, I run a company called Briefs Media. We're probably most known for our Market Briefs newsletter, where we break down what's happening in the financial markets. So that's Briefs Media. Number 2 is I invest in physical real estate. So I'm going out to buy rental properties that I can use to generate cash flow. Number 3, I invest in stocks. This is in the form of investing in individual companies and investing in funds. Funds are ETFs, index funds, mutual funds, where you can get investment into a broad basket of companies. Number 4 is my speculative investments. Notice how I said number 4. This is one of the smallest pieces now, which are things that I believe can go up very quickly, but can also fall just as fast. So these speculative assets, which make up a small piece of my portfolio, include things like startups that I invest in. It also includes things like cryptocurrency. And then I own a little bit of physical gold. Physical gold makes up about 2% of my portfolio. But going back to cryptocurrency, because that's what you asked, I think it is a speculative investment. I have made a ton of money in cryptocurrency. And I started buying cryptocurrency before it was as popular as it is today. I began buying it in 2016 or so, when Bitcoin was around 3,000, maybe 2016, 2017, when Bitcoin was around $3,000 a coin. And I have sold some. And for me, I understand it can go up very fast, but it can fall just as fast. And the issue that I have is when people now want to get into this idea of investing, because now they're in this tough situation. I'm living paycheck to paycheck, and I hear about this financial education and investing. If I just dump my money into Bitcoin or crypto, maybe it'll 10x and I'll have financial freedom. And that's where I have issue, because you're taking your money and you're going for your long-term investments into a speculative asset that hasn't been proven. Maybe it will work and you'll become a multimillionaire. Maybe you'll lose everything. But I don't want to gamble with my wealth. I want to build my wealth with something established and then use the speculative assets as something that is speculative and treat it as such.
In terms of your net worth then, how is it broken down in terms of percentage between these 5 things?
So if we look at real estate is probably close to almost 50% of my investments.
Okay.
Stocks make up probably right around 30%. Speculative is about 18% of my portfolio.
Sorry, the 30%, how much of that is into individual company stocks versus ETFs?
It's about half and half.
Okay, so 15% each. Okay, cool. And then speculatives?
About 18%.
And how much of that is like crypto versus startups?
It was a lot more crypto. Now it's a lot more startups. I sold a chunk of Bitcoin when it was breaking record highs, and I'm going to be using that money to buy some more rental properties.
Okay. And gold?
About 2% of my portfolio.
Okay.
And the reason why I buy gold, I don't consider gold an investment. I look at gold as a way of saving hard money, because my theory is if I take $10,000 of cash and I take $10,000 worth of physical gold and I bury both of these things in my backyard today, in 10 years, what's going to have more buying power? My theory is that the gold is going to have more buying power. And so that's why I own some physical gold. For me, it's this way of saving hard cash. I look at it as a insurance against doomsday, against something really bad happening, against something bad happening to our currency, something bad happening to the economy. That's why I own a little bit of physical gold. But the problem with gold is when I own my physical gold, it just sits there in a vault. It doesn't produce cash flow. It doesn't create new value. It just sits there. When I invest in real estate, it produces cash flow. When I invest in stocks, the companies are working to produce a better product, to grow their profits. The gold doesn't do anything.
What about cash? Do you keep a lot of cash on hand?
Cash is definitely a position. I don't know about percentage, but I always keep cash. And I'm going to break this down a few ways, because I have one, let's call it bucket of cash, which is my emergency savings. This is cash that is there to protect me against an emergency, my personal life. I also have a separate bucket of cash, which is my business emergency savings. Then I have a bucket of cash, which is there to be invested money. This is money that's waiting to be invested in real estate. And then I have, and stocks. And then I also have another little piece of cash that's waiting to be invested more into speculative assets. So I have cash waiting to be invested in speculative assets, cash waiting to be invested in real estate, cash waiting to be invested in stocks. And then I have my emergency cash. So I like to separate it all out.
A second ago, you said that unless you have a money mindset, you're never going to be wealthy. What is the money mindset?
The mindset is number one, you have to believe that you're going to become wealthy. What I like to say is you have to say, I will become wealthy.
Why?
Because if you don't believe you're going to become wealthy, it is going to be impossible for you.
Why?
I used to guest teach in Detroit public schools. So Detroit is it was a very rough, and it still is, rough area. Certain parts of it. Our office is in downtown Detroit, but there are parts of Detroit which are still very rough. And I used to guest teach in some of the public schools there. And these are kids, good kids, who were not exposed to some of the best things. And what I mean by that is when I would go into these classrooms, you'd first have to go through multiple metal detectors. There'd be police there. You might have to be pat down. And when I get into the classroom, I'd ask the kids, how many of you have two parents in the home? Almost nobody would raise their hand. I would then ask, how many of you work a job? Almost everybody would raise their hand. And as I got to know the students better, I also started to realize that these kids, high school kids, some of them are already in gangs. Some of them already have been arrested by the police. Some have already been involved in these, what we consider bad things, and they are bad things. But to the kids, that's just normal. Because when I talk to them about these gangs, what they'll tell me is, I don't have parents at home. I don't have a dad. I don't know my dad. My mom is working. How am I going to eat? My brothers, this gang, provide me some comfort because there's people that are around me. They give me food. They help give me money. It's not a bad thing in their eyes. And so when you grow up in that mindset, it's very hard for you to think bigger. And so when I would come into these classrooms, I would talk about life, motivation, money, all things. And so one of the things that I like to do, an exercise that I would do, is try to get you to think about successful things. What are things that kids want? A nice car. So I would ask these kids, what is your dream car? And the responses that I would get were things like a Ford Mustang or a Dodge Challenger. And, these nice cars, but I would follow up with, why not a Bugatti? Why not a Lamborghini? Why not a Rolls Royce? And they would say, somebody like me can never have something like that. So I can't even dream about having these nice things. And that was really shocking to me. If you're enjoying this video and want to take your investing to the next level, I want to remind you that I put together a free investing masterclass where I walk you through how you can get started as an investor and find hidden investment opportunities before everybody else. It's a completely free masterclass, and when you register, you'll also get access to Market Briefs, which is my newsletter for investors, completely free, complimentary as a bonus. So if you want to get the investing masterclass and Market Briefs all for free, all you have to do is click the link down in the description below to get it. That you are kind of suppressed to the point where not only do you not think that you can achieve it, but you can't even dream that you can achieve it. You can't even achieve it in your own dreams. And so when you don't believe that you are worthy of anything more than a Ford Mustang, how in the world are you going to work for something nicer? And I'm not saying you have to work just for materialistic things, but this is that mindset shift that if you don't believe that you can do it, you are never going to be able to do it. And so this is where the first thing is, you have to say, I will become wealthy. And sometimes you have to be able to find a taste of success and see what that looks like. And there are many ways to go about doing it. You can just go onto Instagram and see what success looks like to some people. But you start to define what is that success and tell yourself, I will become wealthy. Not that I might, not that I can, but I will become wealthy. The second thing is money is a tool. And the reason why I say that is because we've been kind of hinting at this throughout this entire discussion. But the reason why many people are so scared to talk about money, the reason why money is such a taboo topic, is because we are insecure about our own money.
I just want to pause there before we carry on the money as a tool point. It's so interesting what you're saying about those kids. So interesting, because I was thinking as you were speaking about stereotype threats, and in my previous book, I spent some time talking about self-belief and confidence and this idea of stereotype threats. And some of the studies I came across showed that if there's a stereotype that people like you, let's say black people like me, are bad at a certain thing, let's say maths, before they do a math test, if they reminded a black person that they were black, just got them to tick a box saying that they were black, their performance on that test would drop. And they did the same with women. So if there's a stereotype surrounding your ability in something, if they remind you of that part of you before you do a test, your performance drops. And really importantly, in the studies, when they don't remind the black person or the woman about that particular feature of themselves, their performance is the same as everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that when you're talking about money, that we have a stereotype threat there. We exist in a world where we think people like us make a certain amount of money. And if the stereotype threat studies are true, that means that I'm going to show up in the world in such a way that's going to bring that amount of money about. But it's not easy to genuinely believe outside of your stereotype.
100%.
Outside of the context in which you were raised. I went undercover in a school in a rough area in Liverpool that was doing very poorly. And I was undercover as a school teacher. So I was getting to know the kids. And I met this one kid, and I remember him saying to me about his plans for the future. And I sat there and I said, do you know any millionaires? He was like, no, there's no millionaires around here. I was like, have you ever met one? He goes, I've never ever met one. And in that moment, his mum, which it's on video, it was a Channel 4 documentary I did. He then goes, but I think I want to be a millionaire. And his mum burst out laughing. She was on the sofa next to him and she burst out laughing. And I remember asking her on camera saying, why are you laughing? And she goes, no, there's no chance. So it's like indoctrinated into your context, your family, your roots, your friendship networks, that you can't make it. So it's hard.
It is 100% difficult. And it doesn't stop in any level. If, for example, when I told my parents that I didn't want to be a doctor, I was told by everybody, I'm throwing my parents' sacrifice away. And that somebody like me can never make it in business because I don't know anything about business. No one in my family is a business person. No one in my family is an investor. No one in my family does this. You never learned this stuff before. You didn't get into business school. How are you going to do this? And I'm not saying this to compare. I'm saying this to explain that there are so many levels to this mindset block that if you cannot break out of this invisible barrier, you will never become successful. When any employee joins my team, the first day we make every employee, every single one, regardless of a role, do this exercise. It's called the 9 dots exercise. And you have these 9 dots on the screen. And if you go to Google, you can see the 9 dots exercise or 9 dots trivia, where it's 9 dots.
We'll put it on the screen.
Yes. And I'm not going to spoil it, but I will, actually. That's the only way I can get it across. But the way that this exercise works is you have to, in 4 lines, touch every dot on the screen without picking up your pen. You have to touch every dot, all of these 9 dots, without picking up your pen. And so when you do that, you might say, well, it's impossible. How do you do that? And so this is where now...
Oh, okay, not going over a previous line.
Right, you can go over a previous line, but you cannot pick up your pen. So if there's 9 dots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
You have to connect all 9 dots with 4 lines. You can't curve the pen and you can't pick up your pen. And people will say, this is impossible. And the reason why you say it's impossible is because you have just created an invisible barrier. Because now if you go outside of the box, if you extend the pen a little bit further, then you can start to connect all of these dots. And now you realize, oh, it is possible if I don't create these invisible walls around myself, if I don't put myself in this invisible box. And that's what we do. We're all conditioned to do this to some extent. If you grew up in poverty, it might be that you can never become any level of successful. If you grew up thinking that you're going to be this thing, it might be that you can never start a business. You can never become an investor. If you have become an engineer and now in your 30s you want to go out and do something different, it might be that somebody like you can never do something different. But these are all invisible boxes. You see it right there. And that's why we make every team member, every employee do that on the first day, because what we say is, look, we've got to come here and innovate. And if you want to be able to innovate and do something big, you have to get out of your own mind and you have to be able to break out of these invisible barriers. And so now when you go back to your question, it's very difficult. It is difficult. And so how do you do it? And so this goes into now your personal development. What I would recommend is go read 5 books on self-development, personal development, and really now try to implement these things into your life, because until you can start to think a little bit different and you can start to see the world a little bit bigger, you're never going to be able to achieve the maximum level of wealth that you deserve.
I've just gone on Google and found this 9 dots thing, which I've got here. This is the 9 dots.
You got it.
So you're telling me I've got to connect all of the dots without lifting up my pen?
Exactly.
Okay, let me try.
You have only 4 lines and you can't curve.
I can only do 4 lines.
Only 4 lines. 4 straight lines. It's not as easy as it looks. Come on, Steven.
Show me how to do it.
Come on. So what most people do is they start going like this, and then now we freeze up because I don't know where I can go next. But the way that you do it is we're going to break the invisible barrier. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start the same way I did before, but instead of creating the same cut that I did last time, I'm going to break the invisible barrier, go a little bit further down, and now I'm going to come up like this. Then I'm going to go this way, and then I'm going to finish it up like that. You break the invisible barrier. You go beyond what you think you can do because you blew past your own expectations. We have this invisible box around ourselves. And this is what you want to be able to break out of. This is that mindset shift that you have to be able to make. And that's the first part to becoming wealthy.
When you talked about invisible barriers, it reminded me of a video that actually changed my life. And it was a video of an ant. Some people have heard me talk about this video before. This is the video. Shows an ant and they get a Sharpie pen and draw a circle around it. And the ant now believes that it's trapped in this circle. No matter what it does, it goes around and it checks all the sides of the circle. It thinks that it's trapped. We can see that that circle is a figment of its imagination.
Right.
And when I see this, I think, oh my God, we've all got this sort of imaginary circle drawn around us. And then I watched this video of a spider. So they can do the same thing with a spider. But the key moment in this video that really inspired me is the spider's currently trapped by this pen, right? But in this video, there's a moment where the spider accidentally steps over the pen. And when it steps over the pen, it can never, ever be trapped by the pen again. You'll see it in a second. It's running towards it. So this is like an imaginary barrier in its mind. And then if I just bring it forward a little bit, this is the moment here where it gets...
Wow. It's like a real wall.
It thinks it's a real wall.
Yeah.
And then it gets too tight here, it runs over it, and it can never be trapped again.
I love that. Because once you break it, you can't be stopped after that.
You realize that it's an illusion that was trapping you the whole time. And this kind of feeds into what we've been saying about these stereotypes. For me, at a very young age, when I was able to make my first money or start a business or turn an idea into a thing that put money in my pocket, that illusion was broken forever. The illusion that the only way to become successful, you said the same thing, was to go to school, get a degree, get a job. And you can't unsee it.
You can't unlearn it.
Yeah.
You can't ever go and follow that same traditional path and do that again because you saw the other side. And until you get a taste of it, you're going to be stuck. And that's where, again, all success starts with your mindset. And that's why I say, I will become wealthy.
That first point, though, of awareness, just knowing the fact that you're trapped by something. And it's not to say that I've broken out of all of my psychological barriers now. I'm just in a new one. I'm just in a new set of barriers.
Yeah.
I think that I can have 9 figures. I probably don't think I could be a billionaire or whatever at this moment. And all of us, no matter how successful we think we are in some kind of circle.
Always. In every stage of your life, you're in some sort of barrier. And, everything that you do now has to be constantly working to shock yourself. When I started my YouTube channel, it's kind of funny. I didn't start my YouTube channel thinking that it was going to be big. And the funny thing was, I always thought that I thought big. I think big, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. I didn't start my YouTube channel to make money. This was kind of a hobby for me. But I remember and I laugh at this now. I told my brother when I started my YouTube channel, if I hit 100,000 subscribers, I don't know what I'm going to do. But if I hit 1 million subscribers, I'm going to shut my channel down because there's no way. It's impossible that my channel is going to hit 1 million subscribers. Like, there's not 1 million weirdos in the world that are going to want to watch this random guy on YouTube talk about guacamole and money, right? And the funny thing is, I started making these videos. I started enjoying making these videos because I started talking about the things that I wish somebody would have told me before. And people started to watch. And people started to actually enjoy it and share it with their friends. And then we hit 100,000 subscribers, and I couldn't believe it. We hit 500,000 subscribers, and I couldn't believe it. And then one day, we hit 1 million subscribers. And I was like, oh crap, I hope my brother doesn't remember this promise because I don't want to shut this down. But then we continued growing. And here I was, this guy who had been successful. I'm already investing in real estate. I've had some business success. I broke out of this idea of becoming a doctor and started a business. And I'm still putting these limitations on myself that I can't start a YouTube channel. Why did I do that? Because I had never done that before. I had never seen this happen for somebody like me before.
So is there anything practical that someone who's currently trapped in some kind of psychological barriers can do practically to help them be more expansive with how they think about their life?
What I do, and I don't know if I recommend this to anybody else, is I'm a little stubborn. I'm going to kind of preface it with that, is I do things to stick out and be different. So what I mean by this, I'm going to go back to what I said before. The first time I made $1 million in a year, I thought originally that I would be flying in private jets and balling out and doing all this stuff. But I knew that I wanted something different. I wanted to build this wealth, but I didn't want to now start living like everybody else. I wanted to do something different. So I continued living small. That's why I continued driving around in this car, because everybody questioned what the heck I was doing. People were wondering, is Jaspreet actually successful, or is this guy a hoax? Is Jaspreet broke? Can he not afford a nicer car? And so I kind of put myself in this position of like hearing this stuff and wanted to really, you talked about confidence. I wanted to really build my confidence to be that person that did something different. And I don't know, I get joy out of it. I'm a weirdo. I get joy out of that. When I graduated law school, I told my dad before I graduated law school, even before, that I'm only doing this for you. And so when it was my graduation day, everybody, you wear a nice suit and tie and you kind of get all dressed up to go. I told my dad, look, I told you I'm going to get you the diploma, but I'm going to do it on my terms. So I decided not to wear a suit. I decided to wear a very traditional Punjabi outfit called a kurta pajama, which is a long shirt and pants. And I wore traditional, it's called a Punjabi jutti, meaning Indian shoes. And for me, I just wanted to do that because it gave me this confidence. And yeah, I mean, people will say, what the heck are you wearing? But for me, I needed that burst of confidence that I'm doing this for me. And I get fueled by people questioning me. And you have to find what fuels you.
On that first point of it's my duty to become wealthy, is that just something you say out loud? Is there a way you can remind yourself of this?
So I'm not a big fan of, meditating on this idea of you become wealthy. I'm not a big fan of this woo-woo idea of I'm going to become wealthy, I'm going to become wealthy. That's not how it works. But what I do believe is you have to keep reminding yourself and giving yourself the motivation and discipline in the beginning as to why you started, some fuel as to why you started. So one of the things I like to talk about is, what is your why? Who are you doing this for? And so in our office, everybody has next to their desk this tack board where you can put pictures or whatever it might be to remind you of why you're working hard. And in the beginning for me, I was pissed off. I wanted to prove people wrong, and I was angry. And I don't try to cuss on camera that often, but here we go. I was angry. And the reason why I was angry is because when I made that decision to not become a doctor, the thing that I was told was I'm throwing away the sacrifice that my parents made. And I started a business at the time. I was working in the e-commerce world, and I started a sock company. And so then the comments that we get was, so Jaspreet, you were going to become a doctor. Now you're selling socks. And it was this very just reoccurring, just like, you gave up your dreams. You gave up all the sacrifices that your family did. You don't even appreciate the things, the sacrifices. And now you're just going to sell socks on the internet. And that was my fuel, because I knew, I don't know how, but I knew I was going to prove you wrong.
Toxic fuel.
It was 100%. It was just anger, just pure, just anger. I'm going to prove you wrong. And slowly the business started to grow. I started to be seen on TV, and all these things started to happen. And so I was fortunate that my business also flipped, that now I'm not selling socks. I'm, building this financial media company, Briefs Media. And now for me, there is a purpose for what I do. There's a lot of people that are lacking financial education. There's a lot of people that are working really hard, that have no idea why they can't build any wealth. They keep hearing about how people are becoming so wealthy, investment levels are skyrocketing, billionaires are becoming even richer, and they don't understand, and people just get angry. When in reality, you can participate in that same game and win in this game, because our economic system is designed to benefit investors. And if you don't understand that, you will never be able to win in the system.